Just fucking do it. Subscribe now.
Based on the research that's done by the investors, $40 million is only going to get them past the year. I mean, after 2005, they're out of money, basically, which is not enough. So they're operating in deficit. And so they'll need future investment from 2006 and beyond.
So we were just looking at the different exhibits and trying to figure out what the differences were. But the first exhibit tells us that they will need an additional $500 million of investments before they can,
500 million.
yeah, before they can actually turn money out of the company in 8 years into the future.
If it all works to plan.
Yes.
And they never always work to plan.
Business plan doesn't work.
I mean, that's why there's the A round, B round, C round, D round of finance. And normally the guys that put up the money initially are taken out in the subsequent rounds of raising because they've got their ROI that they were looking for, and then they leave the big pop to the 6th, 7th, or 20th investor. And Sierra are some of the smartest guys on the street. They're really super bright, and they've made a lot of money. So if they're in there on the first, it's because they've got their own biotech team, et cetera, et cetera. So
they're potential, essentially.
Yeah. But the numbers never are even remotely close to what they think they are.
But that's a shitty deal, isn't it? A shitty deal.
Well, it's a shitty deal based on what we're looking for. But I mean, the return, and I haven't tracked it back, but I'm sure if Sierra's still in the deal today, I'd be surprised. They will have gotten out, and they will have gotten 2 to 5 to 6 more rounds of investment. And it's a greater fool theory. The Sierra sells to KKR, and then KKR sells to First Boston, and then Boston sell, and that's how these the private equity funds work.
Because Chris's question was, if they're selling already 60% to Sierra, how are they going to raise another $500 million if they only have X percentage left? And what you're saying is that you keep reselling the same amount, the same.
Well, no. They're going to sell the 60 to somebody else when they have the second round after this round. They're going to have 100%. Either Sierra will or won't sell all or part of the 60, but that's for them to get a return. And Arcadian has got 40 left, so they can sell all or part of the 40. But that 60, unless, is gone. And so it's a shitty deal based on they don't have enough to sell anymore to raise additional money, unless one of their patents or one of the things come to fruition, and the thing's worth, tens of billions. But on the face of it, they don't have enough extra to fund their idea, unless they were so positive that at the end of the first year or the end of 2 years, whenever they run out of money, and to talk to these high-tech guys, these inventor types, they're always positive, but they hardly ever come to fruition. But some of the ideas, like cold fusion, which still hasn't been solved, cold fusion has been raising money, big money, from very, very smart people. And I'm almost positive Sierra's invested in cold fusion for 40 years. I mean, there's been billions and billions and billions, because when they ultimately, and they're always riding on the shoulders of somebody else's idea, but when cold fusion happens, or a similar derivative of cold fusion happens, it's going to be worth $1 trillion, trillions. And that's why they keep on playing. But until that happens, it's a greater fool theory.
But the first projection of needed future investments is by the management of Arcadia itself. And they are saying we're going to need $500 million in 8 years, and we are willing to sell you 60% for 40. So
So they're trying to do the valuation. If 60% for 40, instead of paying 60% for 800 million would be, no, I mean 60% of 800 million is what, 480 million.
So they're saying you're getting a tenth.
Exactly. That's the sale. That's the pitch. But what their pitch is, or their hope is, at Sierra, in 2 years from now, when they're going to run out of money in a year, to sell for a lot more than 60%, for a lot more than 40 million. But I mean, it's still a greater fool theory. It's, but eventually, it's like Facebook. Their idea, they must have had 6 or 7 rounds of funding, Facebook. I think Google the same. And it's because all the funds have different criteria. Sierra is looking for a 25% IRR, which they don't get, but that's their benchmark. They're looking to invest in this and get 25% IRR for 2 years. So they put in 60 million, 25%, 1 year is 30. So roughly, they're going to double their money in 2 years.
Right. So this thing is still going to be going in 2 years.
Correct.
To be able to sell it for a little bit more.
Correct. And when and these inventions, these ideas rarely stay on the same plane. They morph, and sometimes they pivot altogether. They're going to find it like the guys that funded the DNA experiments from the early 50s, when the 3 PhDs, 2 from Oxford, 1 from someplace else, were getting funded to discover DNA. They weren't looking for DNA in their search. They discovered the DNA chain, okay? And the money back in the 50s didn't go to the professors, it went to the school. It's changed now. Now, the professors will have left Cambridge and set up an office across the street and got rich. But back in those days, they were, it was science for the pure science of it. Now it's not. Or I should say, it's a lot less than it used to be. I mean, we had real guys. If anybody could have raised money, it was Einstein and shit like that. I mean, he never raised a penny. I mean, he died destitute.
So this could be a good deal if we think that these guys will still be, not necessarily solve the problem, but still showing promise for the next couple of years.
And the longer it is, the smaller the promise has to be, but the payload has to be greater. The payload, so it's not in proportion to what you'd think. So they may be able to sell 40% for $1 billion next time around. It depends on the results they're producing. And then there's a whole game that, and unfortunately, one of my kids, Chris Josafowicz, who left here, he went to Silicon Valley, raised several $100 million on a deal that already failed at Cambridge. It had failed, they put it away in the dustbin. Not once, not twice, but 3 fucking times. 3 deals that failed at Cambridge, he sold to Silicon Valley. And then when he got caught, the castle man taught me.
Oh, motherfucker.
Oh, they all. I mean, you're not going to come back and tell anybody you made a lot of money. You lying Persian piece of shit. You're going to say, when you go to jail, when you go to jail and your little nephew is fucking you in the ass, oh, the castle man, that's the only time I ever hear about from anybody is when they get in trouble. The castle man. And in that same Chris Josafowicz kid, he put it on YouTube. Just what I'm saying, the castle man taught me. And then he went to 1990 Desert Storm. He bid for the security contract. This is all over the internet. He bid for the security contract for the Green Zone. The Green Zone is the safe zone, supposedly. Around the ambassador and all the bullshit. He bid on a 3-year contract. And he got the 3-year contract for $740 some million. He was $500 million lower than the next bid. or the next bid above. Yeah, he was he was the lowest bid by 500 million. He got the contract. Congress, whoever issued the contract, I'm sure it's the U.S. government. And then he went and hired G4, the largest security firm in the world. It's now called something else, G4. And he paid G4 $350 million and kept 400 million. And then there was a congressional investigation, a scandal. There was leaked and all this shit. And then the contract came up again. He bid on it again. And the federal government was so embarrassed they gave him the contract again.
But this was legal, right?
What?
This was legal.
Yeah, absolutely legal. And and this time when he won the contract, he went back to G4 and tried to hire him again. G4 told him to fuck off, took the contract away from him, maybe physically, and they gave him $50 million and they said, here, go on your way. Yeah, and he didn't file suit. He now runs a hedge fund in Boston, and he's changed his name to Chris Conley. And I told him when he was here, Josafowicz, that dog won't hunt. Well, in fact, a lot of your names don't hunt. You don't think it makes any difference anymore, but you're so wrong. They have people, they go down the list. I'm not, who. Fuck him, he's a Chinaman. I mean, I'm telling you. They go down the next. And but he got the government contract and the name of Christopher Connolly, which is the name I gave him. And his mother and father hate me.
Oh. Why? Because you gave him a new name?
No, because, I mean, his dad's a lawyer.
A millionaire now.
And his mom is an engineer. And they're of Polish descent, Josafowicz. And they're proud Polacks that fought in the 866 war and all. I mean, and now he's Christopher Connolly. And he won the contract twice. The guys, the Dog of War guys, that movie, The Dog of War? Yeah. My boys. I can teach you how to make billions tomorrow. But you almost always, I really need that extra 300 million. And then that's the 300 million you go to jail. We got plenty. We got tons and tons of these guys that have made billions. After the wall came down in 90, Estonia, Lithuania, Romania, Czechoslovakia, almost all those countries, the guys came here in the early 90s at the seminar in cash, in suitcases. The number 2, 3, 5, and 7th richest guys in Hungary are my boys. In Romania, the 3 richest guys are my boys. In Lithuania, the top 4 guys are my boys. In Estonia, 3 out of the top 7 guys are my boys. In Ukraine, all 5 of the top richest guys are my boys. Russia, 5 of the top 15 guys are my boys, Putin's boys. Why do you think the Medellin cartel from Colombia sent their top 2, the number 2 and 3 guy here in the 90s? They try to, because corruption, everybody knows everybody, and they try to convince me, they try to pay me $1 million a day to go to Colombia to fix their cash flow problem. And I was going to give the money to the Catholic Church, the Vatican, long story. And finally, we couldn't do it anyway legally, where I wasn't going to be considered involved in money laundering, so I didn't do it. But they give me credit taking their business from a $5 billion a year business to a $30 billion a year business. The Medina drug cartel. 5 to 30. And they sat in this room. His name was Roberto as well. He sat next to Sally, right? Let's see, Sally normally sit about here. He sat there. And then they came back again when I said no, because the owner normally tell him no. Came with another guy, who I guess was the muscle guy, but I didn't think so. I said, I'm not going. But he learned some extra shit. And
some secrets?
No, nothing that you don't know. But they did it. When I say pull the trigger, I mean they literally pulled the trigger. My model is the mafia model. Mine's no different than the the Gotti model, the lawyer, the guy that's doing veterinary clinics, he says, this is the John Gotti model. There's no question it works. There's none whatsoever, except most of the guys don't have the balls to do it. And literally the balls. Balls or brains, 90-10. But all those Lithuania, all those guys, they all know me. Well, they sent another guy here last year who was, not in the gangster part of Hungary, but he heard what Peter did, and then he asked one, oh God, and they said, oh yeah, he went to the councilman. That's what I used to be called, the councilman. He says, and Peter didn't pay a bribe, which he didn't. But all those guys know who the fuck I am, because it works.